Well, today I'm just going to talk to you, okay? I've been reading a lot. How many of you get into these like seasons where you grab every book possible that you can find? It's like, oh, of course you have to read books in here all the time anyway. But I'm just like in this where I just can't get enough information. And I think Jill Austin is the culprit because she gave me this prophetic word. She goes, I see you reading books and you're using them for reference and you're just, hi, Connie. Wow, it's good to see you. Are you going to be in Orangeville? I heard you were. Good. So I'm just reading all these books. Excuse me. I'm reading all these books like crazy. And Bill will bring home books from his travels. You know, we get books and CDs all the time from people. And he's brought 2 home. And I went, thank you very much. I'll take that one. Thank you very much. I'll take that one. And so I've been reading these books. And I wanted to read just a few things out of these books to you today to kind of stir you up and to give you some really good news and some really fun news, okay? Will that be good? Now, this first book is called Epicenter by, how many of you have heard of this book? Epicenter? Oh, yeah. And it's by Joel Rosenberg. He's a Jewish man. And how many of you heard of the book, The Last Jihad? Okay, well, he wrote that book, okay? So this book is about why he wrote all the other novels that he's written, okay? And he's like an evangelical, and he talks about all the end-time prophecies, so, you know, whatever your theology is, whatever. But on all that. But this book was so intriguing when I started reading, I could not put it down. So if you like history, world events, political stuff, this is an awesome book. So I want to read just a few things to you out of it, okay? He's a Christian man, like I said. And I want to give you some really good news. Okay, there's this story about this guy in here. They call him the modern day... First, let me tell you something. Yesterday, one of the students asked me, so what's happening? What are you thinking about? What's going on? And I'm like, I gave her an answer, but it really wasn't the answer. And so I've been thinking about that. And somebody asked me the other day, too, how do you pray for Israel? Because I'm going to Israel in September. And how are you praying for Israel? And I said, you know how I'm praying? I'm praying for the fulfillment of the Gentiles. In Romans 11:25, for I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, which is the whole Gentile Jew thing, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come. Is that good? That's a good strategy, huh? So I'm praying for the fullness of the Gentiles. So I want to say that to you because I want to read some fruit of what's happening in the Gentile world, the Arab world, that you're not going to hear on the news. Okay? All right. There's this guy in, his name is Sadah, S-A-D-A, and more back there. And they call him the modern day Daniel. And he was a man that was put in the office with Saddam Hussein. He was one of his legal advisors. And he's a Christian. And it's like God just put him in there. So in 1990, Saddam Hussein came up with this revelation that he was going, let's destroy Israel. Let's take all our jet planes and let's go bomb Israel and let's just wipe them all out. So Sadah, who's a Christian, went before the Lord and said, Lord, this cannot happen. This cannot happen. And of course, if you go against Saddam Hussein, you most always die, okay, right on the spot. So he knew that he had to confront Saddam, but he wasn't exactly sure how. So what he did is he just finally said, I'm just going to go do it. Whether it means life or death, I'm going to go do it. And so he went before all the leadership and Saddam himself in one of their meetings, and for an hour and 40 minutes, he presented a case why it would not be smart to go in and kill the Jews in Israel. And afterwards, he didn't die, obviously. And afterwards, the other guys in there, the leaders in there, came to him and said, we cannot believe that you would even consider even talking about this in front of him, we thought for sure you were a dead man. But God, when God's timing, it's like Esther, it's like Daniel, and God's timing, when it's timing of the Lord, there's favor on it, and it works. And so this guy he infiltrated the system, and God used him to save a nation. Isn't that amazing? Woo, I like that stuff. So, let's see. Let me find the rest of my little notes here. Okay. I think this is happening, this is happening in Iraq, okay? Now, this is evangelicals speaking, talking, okay? And so healing, signs and wonders and stuff is kind of like they don't specialize in that. But I tell you what, it's happening everywhere. It's sneaking in everywhere, okay? So this is what they're saying. People are being healed. This is in Iraq. People are being healed, many of them. We don't have much experience with that, but we're seeing it happen anyway. And that's not all. Muslims are seeing visions of Jesus Christ. He is coming to them and speaking to them, and they are repenting and giving their lives to him. Shiites. I'm talking about Shiite Muslims seeing visions of Jesus and becoming his followers. In fact, I actually haven't personally met any Shiites who have come to Christ who were converted because someone shared the gospel with them. They have all come to faith through dreams and visions. And they are coming to us already persuaded. And all they have to do is disciple them. Isn't that amazing? And that just wasn't one ministry. Everyone he interviewed in Iraq, all the Christian leaders said the very same thing. That they were coming through signs and the dreams and the visions. And we have prayed that God would change the dream life of people and they would begin having revelations and dreams. That's just wonderful. Okay, now this is in Iran. And God is using other creative methods to reach Iranians as well. Back in 2003, when Iranians heard that Mel Gibson, The Passion of Christ, was anti-Semitic, they couldn't wait to see it. God can use anything, huh? When we're like, wait a minute, that's not right. God says, I'll use this one. That's like a pear, It's working with, yeah. Let's see. Neither apparently could the mullahs and the government authorities, thinking that anything negative about the Jews had to be good for the Muslims. So despite the fact that Islam forbid the visual depiction of Jesus and teaches that Judas was crucified in Jesus' place and thus was never resurrected, the Passion actually played in Persia. Woo! True, only one theater ran it, but listen to this, but there was a 10-day waiting list for the tickets. What's more, tens of thousands of bootlegged copies of The Passion are now circulating throughout Iran. Now, this is what they say about the Iranian people as well. But even though they have done all that, the movies and everything, what they're saying is bringing the Iranian people to the Lord is the dreams and the visions of Jesus. Just as in Iraq, though in much larger number. But, let's see. As one Iranian pastor explained, a factory manager recently showed up at his church. He didn't need to share the gospel with him. He didn't need to persuade him of anything, which was good in a way because many in our congregation are terrified to share their faith. But this man already believed because Jesus had spoken to him in a dream. In fact, he said that Jesus had been personally teaching him the way to follow him for 2 hours a day for an entire year. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? Oh, my goodness. Yay, God. Okay, now, this is the second book I want to read from. This is called Searching the Source of the River. In fact, Paul Manwaring is one of the guys that endorsed this book, which I thought was cool. She's from England, and it's called The Forgotten Women of the British Pentecostal Revival. Okay, you ladies are going to love this. Now, I had just been given a word about me and about Polly Wigglesworth. Okay, now you hear about Smith all the time, but you don't hear about Polly. So women, this is awesome. Now, she was a preacher, okay? She was the one that carried everything, seriously. And she died when she was 52. And her death experience was pretty interesting. Anyway, I want to read to you what happened to Smith. See, Smith was illiterate, and he couldn't preach. All right? In the beginning, he could not preach. He would stumble over his words and end up in a heap crying. But Polly continued to educate him and to teach him and to encourage him that he could do it. Okay, so here, this is where I want to start. They had heard that in England there had been an outpouring of the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues in Sutherland. Okay, how many of you are from England? Man, you have got a history. Oh my goodness. So they had heard that there was an outpouring and people were getting baptized in the Holy Spirit. Now, Smith and Polly were in the holiness movement, and that was really controversial back then, and a lot of people thought it was just demonization, okay? So, but a woman offered to pay Smith's fare if he would go to Sutherland, and while he was in Sutherland, he was baptized in the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues. So he was really apprehensive about letting Polly know about this. So this is what it says. Cautious of his wife's response, he related the story, and Polly retorted, I want you to understand that I am as much baptized as you, and I don't speak in tongues. I have been preaching for 20 years and you have sat beside me on the platform. But on Sunday, you will preach yourself, and I will see if there is something in this. Although fully involved in the work, he used to struggle to speak publicly and left all the preaching to her. He had to win over his wife before he could win the approval of the rest of the folk at the mission. Now, Polly had thrown down the gauntlet, and the next Sunday she sat on a bench at the back of the hall. When it was time for the message, Smith walked the 3 steps up to the platform, and as he did, God gave him the passage out of Isaiah 61, 1 through 3. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and he was. Smith preached fluently, under a heavy anointing, and didn't break down and weep as he had done in previous occasions. Smith himself said, suddenly I felt that I had prophetic utterances which were flowing like a river by the power of the Holy Spirit. Polly couldn't believe what she was seeing and hearing. She shuffled up and down the bench and said in a whisper, but still loud enough for those around her to hear, "That's not my Smith. That's not my Smith." Amazing, amazing. What's happened to the man? And so from there, the baptism of the Holy Spirit just broke out in their midst. And then from that point, the healing started happening. And her favorite thing to do was outdoor meetings. And one of the stories was they were on a cycle tour in Scotland once. They were riding their bicycles through Scotland. And they came upon a group of people that were having an outdoor meeting. And she got off her bike and stood right in the center and started preaching. And her favorite place to preach was outside amongst the people. So anyway, I wanted to read those to you today because they're inspiring and they're cool. And you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. And you should be so excited about going home this summer to see what God is going to do in your lives. Oh, yay, yay, yay. Okay, question. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you could share a little bit about your love story with Bill.
My what?
Your love story.
My love story.
How you hooked up. And also Bill said that he was talking about back when there were not as many students, you would sit down with people who were dating and you would share your boundaries with them, and you were like, this is how you should do it. I was wondering if you could also share those boundaries with us.
Oh, you bet.
Good question, good question.
Okay. When Bill and I started dating, I knew he was the one. And I tell women, women come to me now, and I know he's the right one, and I don't recommend that. But I knew he was one. So he was very quiet and very shy, and so was I. So I don't know how it worked, but it worked. So we were dating. We dated for a year or so. I might get the days a little bit mixed up. It's been a while ago, 34 years. And I was 18. He was 21 when we got married. And you know, it was interesting. Our best friends told us that we shouldn't marry each other because we weren't right for each other. Isn't that funny? You know, God always kinds of there's a little bit of, sometimes there's spiritual warfare that comes along with this kind of stuff because the enemy doesn't want good teams to come together. So he broke up with me. He went to college in Costa Mesa, and he was there for 2 months. Couldn't handle it. College was not his forte, and neither was it mine, so that was good for us. But in that 2-month period, he wrote me a Dear John letter, broke up with me. But I still knew that he was the one, so I just waited patiently. And you know, this is I tell this, I guess I haven't told you before, but the thing that he liked about me the most is whenever he would shake my hand in church, my hands were warm. Isn't that funny? The funny little things that we like about each other. So we dated for a couple years, and then I woke up one morning, and we were going to school in Santa Rosa at a discipleship school, similar to this, but not the full gospel type thing. And I woke up that morning, and the Lord spoke to me. I heard the Lord say He's going to ask you today to marry Him. And I went, wow, cool. And something happened that day, and I just got a little frustrated with Him, which I never do that. And we don't fight. You know, we've had 2 disagreements in our marriage, and so it's like I woke up, and it was just kind of one of those days, and I was just like, it just was so frustrating to me. I completely put it out of my mind. And that night he goes, let's drive to San Francisco, which is about 45 minutes away from Santa Rosa, and I said, yeah, sure. And of course, we were always very poor and hardly had any gas money, and you know, we never dated because we didn't have any money to date. We'd go to Denny's and have a salad, you know. So I said, yeah, sure. So we drove up, and we drove up to the point there, the lookout point, and pulled into the driveway, and he popped the question. And I was like, it really shocked me. I don't know why. It shouldn't have, because I knew. It's like, oh, yeah, that's what you told me this morning when I woke up. So he asked me, and I said yes, of course. And I drove away. We drove away, and the minute we drove away, this immense fear hit me. And I don't do fear, okay? It's like this intense fear, what in the heck have I done? And I'm the one all along that was like, he's the one, I'm going to get married, you know, and the whole deal. And so we did it, and everything's been fine, and I got over that little fear thing. And we had a really good relationship in dating. We kept it really pure, and right from the get-go, we had an agreement that we wouldn't make out and all that good stuff and bad stuff then. Not when you're married, but so it took all the pressure off. We just went for God, and we loved God. We were in a really good setting with the school, and really good for us, and we spent a lot of time together. What happened is we became best friends, and then as we got closer together, our spiritual lives grew together. We would pray together and study together, and it was just like absolutely incredible. So it was a blessing. I had come out of a relationship earlier that was not a good relationship. So to find somebody that was like really nice to me and respectful was just like heaven, you know? And we shouldn't settle for anything else. So it was just really good. And so we were engaged for 5 months and got married. I recommend a short engagement. It works the best. None of these even 1 year, I think, is too long. So anyway, rules. At one point, we had our daughter Leah and Mariah Grubbs and Leslie, get whatever her name is. They were living in our house, and it was 2 of the girls were in our school, and all of them were getting married. So we had cell phones going, we had computers going. You know, you just shop online. So it was a crazy, crazy place, and so I knew that we had to set some rules, some boundaries, some rules and stuff. So I said, okay, here's the rules. Keep your tongue in your mouth. Okay? You laugh, but I mean it. And Bill has a whole teaching on that, defrauding each other before you're married. Not safe, not safe. And then don't ever be in the house by yourself together. Let's see, what else? I think of the rest of them. Brian and Jen had one rule that she couldn't even be in the car. This was her parents' rules, that she couldn't be in the car at night with him, even driving home. Woo, wow. I thought, well, that works. That's fine. They'll make it through that one. That's good. So when you date, just date in a public environment. Okay, no private, no private dating. Keep yourself safe, really, is the rule. And make it right from the beginning, and just do it. Just do it, okay? Is that a feather or is that just dust? There's been feathers today? So, okay, I'm trying to think, is there anything else? I think that's good enough. Oh, and don't sit in the car by yourself at night. Together, not in the car, okay? So I remember I came home one night, and here's one of the girls and one of the guys that were living she was living with us, and they were standing outside of their car waiting for us to get home because they weren't allowed to sit in the car alone together, or they weren't allowed to go in the house together alone, so they were just sitting there waiting for us. And sometimes I felt like I was the babysitter, for her and our daughter, because I just wouldn't allow them to be at home by themselves. So it's just nice and safe and good that way. So is that good? Yeah. So, okay, another question. That was a long one. That was a fun one, though. I like those.
Benny, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the class. We just honor you as the mother of this house, and just the presence that you carry. I feel like every time you've spoken, I've received something, a real impartation, and you do it so effortlessly. Just thank you. My question is, how do you practically balance basically resting, coming from a place of rest and peace and action, especially when the circumstances would seem, from the world's perspective, to demand action now? How do you balance the peace and the rest with the action?
I get the rest when I can. It's not always days that go by where I can just soak for hours, or just rest in the Lord. But I do it when I can. Traveling is always pretty intense. For me, I'm not a sit in a pew type of person. So sitting in conference after conference is really difficult for me. I have forced myself to do it just because that's what we do. And but say when I'm traveling, I have to get outside. I've got some Irish blood in me, and that's, it's just, I have to be outside. So when we go places, I'll get up earlier in the morning or take a break in the afternoon and just go outside and go walking. And just, that's for me a real practical place where I can just and just rest, and I talk with God and, pray and which is talking to God. And so that's what I do. And some days it's really, really busy. And then I have a really unusual schedule. I don't keep office hours. And I think it's a God thing for me because I'm supposed to be over there a lot. And I'm supposed to be just soaking and doing what I'm supposed to do, and that's pray. spending time with God. So, and I kind of, I administrate intercession and prayer throughout the church. You know, it's like, you're really good at it, so go do it. That's what I do. And so that's how I do it. And some days, to be honest with you, it can get overwhelming, the busyness and the go stuff. And a lot of it is that my personality doesn't allow for that, where you have like a Chris, where he would just go and be fine. But for me, I have to make myself pull out, or I get really overwhelmed. In fact, the first of this week, I was in that place. And this morning, I had some real breakthroughs. So it was just like, okay, I'm focused again. If you want to say this word, I'm centered. I'm centered on Jesus. So if I don't do that, I am a mess. I'm a basket case. So for me, that's my DNA, and I have to stay on that line. So I try to make my schedule conducive to that. So, yeah, someone else. Where are we? Okay.
Okay, I'm ready. I've really enjoyed hearing about your Benny adventures, going to Alaska and going to all these places and doing prophetic, not rituals,
Acts.
Acts, there you go. Prophetic acts as far as the keys and so forth. And I just wanted to get a feel of what you think or what you perceive is going on in Central America, South America, and the Caribbean, because I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling this summer, doing ministry, and I have enjoyed hearing, and I feel like that's something that I do as well. And just if you know of anything going on, so that I can pray accordingly and just be prepared to do anything I need to do.
Are you going
accordingly.
to be in Puerto Rico?
Not in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
No.
Who's going home? Is anybody going home to Puerto Rico? Anybody here from Puerto Rico? Shoot. Okay. I believe that God is moving everywhere. I mean, it's just a matter of you being in open heaven and going. You know, we hear stories of this place is really hard and that's really hard, and when we go there, we don't find it hard at all. So I think we're in a season that if you tap into that and have a mindset that God is really on the move and moving, He's going to move. It's what you want. It's exactly what you want, and you just go for it, because God is on the move everywhere. Oh, if you were going to Puerto Rico, I would tell you to go to the old city and go to the gate. And there's an ancient tree there. And to pray and bless that ancient tree, because I've told you this before, all matter has memory. So bless that piece of matter, that tree. Bless that. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but I just love to go bless. And did I tell you the story about being in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and praying at the gate? This is a real quick story. We're just hiking, you know, and they're taking a tour of the city, the old city, San Juan, and we come up around this corner, and this is huge, majestic, I don't know what kind of tree it was, but the trunk was probably about this big around. And it had vines on it and other branches growing. I mean, it just was amazing. It had these long, viney wood things hanging off. And so I'm like, oh, wow, that's an ancient tree. That tree needs to be blessed. So I just walked up to the tree, and I'm walking around the tree and touching the tree, and I hold on to one of the things. And Bill looks over, he goes, "What are you doing?" He knows what I'm doing. I said, "I'm just blessing the tree." You know, and just when you bless, you change the atmosphere that's around, okay? And so when you have in your mouth blessings to speak, and know that you're changing the atmosphere around you. And so that's what I do. And then the gate was right there, and I just put my hand on the gate and just praying over the whole area, just that God would bring blessing and favor and peace and safety and, you know, just fun stuff like that. So that's why if you were going to Puerto Rico, I'd tell you to go there and visit that open heaven. Okay, next. You're on.
Pastor Bill told us, I think it was yesterday, that you went down to the bottom of the hill and had a conversation with International Angel, and I'm just really interested in hearing more about that.
I actually didn't have a conversation, but I went down there. Because when Bobby Connors was here, he said, "Oh, there's a new angel, and it's down at the bottom of the driveway, and it's an international angel, and it's specifically for international travel and stuff." And I went, oh, I'm going down there. Because I had, a year ago when we were traveling, I was burnt out. And I said, Bill, I can't do this anymore. And international travel was just like, phew. And so I just thought, you know what? And it's really funny. This year, I'm doing almost all international stuff. I'm doing some local stuff, but I'm doing some international stuff too. And I thought, I really need God's grace for this year. And so I went down there, and I just stood there, and I just received. I didn't really say anything. I just said, I'm just here, angel, and I'm receiving an impartation. And I just stayed down there for a while and went back and forth on both sides of the road. And ever since then, I have been so excited to go overseas, and I can't wait to go on the next trip. We leave Monday for Africa, and I'm very, very excited. And I'm going to Israel, and I just went to Australia and England, and it was just like a world of difference from last year. So I went back down there again before we went to England. And if I have time, I'll probably go back down there again for Africa. So just, just receiving. It's got to be there for a reason. I'm going to take advantage of it.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, next.
I've noticed that when you walk into rooms, there's kind of like a presidential type thing about you, that when you walk into a room, it literally feels like you got bodyguards. And I don't know if you know about that. But like you walk into a room and I'm kind of like, wow, like you can just sense like 5 or 6 angels, cool. And it's just like bodyguard. Can you explain?
No.
Do you know about that? Or?
I know they're there.
And I'm not the only one that knows or senses it.
Yeah. I know they're there. I don't understand the whole presidential, if that's what you want to call it, thing. I just know that that's what I have, and that's what I got. And if you would ask me if I wanted it years ago, I'd say, no way. I'm happy to sit in the back pew and, So it's just when God puts you in a place of authority, he equips you. So.
And another thing, do you have any more words for Puerto Rico? I'm going there next summer with my parents to do several churches. We're going to preach at several churches.
It's a great place.
So any prophetic thing?
Are you going to Carlos's church? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
It's not right in it's not, huh? It's not in San Juan, it's out a ways. Yeah, it's on, yeah. We went there, that's a really fun place to go. It's a really fun place to go.
Okay, cool.
So, but yeah, just go and just, just be you. That's what God wants you to do. He just wants you to be you. He works best if you just be you and not anybody else. Hey, someone else. Yeah.
You are such a quiet warrior, and we stand in awe of you. It's marvelous.
Thank you.
We know that Bill spends a lot of time alone with God, just soaking or praying. And I wondered, is that your MO too? Are you like that? Is that a similar picture for you?
I really don't survive if I don't. And it's not that I do it for a long time. It's just I just stay I stay longer than that. But I press into the Lord, and I've been doing it for 11 years, and it comes really fast now, but his presence, I can feel it. It's always there, but I feel it. And if I just open my spirit to it, it's manifest, okay? And so I do that until I'm in that place, okay? That may take a few minutes. That may take an hour for my brain to slow down, okay? But that's something that I just made a practice of. But what I try to do is, out of that, I try to do 24/7. It's like when I'm gardening, when I'm in my car, it's like my whole world is that. So you try to stay focused on that.
Do you talk as well or just listen?
Pardon?
Do you talk as well or you just listen?
Oh, I listen mostly. Yeah, I mostly listen. It's just it's an adoration, it's a worship that comes. And once you plug into that, there's just downloads and downloads of what God is doing and what God is saying. And you really don't have to do a lot of talking. So.
Over here.
Yeah.
So lately, like in the last month, at random times, like not when I would usually soak or be praying or whatever, I'll just be like ready for school, about to leave or something, or just hanging out or just nothing. And my spirit will just start freaking out, and I'll start to feel it like leaving or detaching. And I just don't know what's going on, or if that should be happening, or if that's good or bad, or
Yeah.
so I wanted to talk to you about it.
The more the more time we spend in God's presence, the more we're going to feel Him, and the faster it will come. And there'll be moments like that all the time. Okay. Now, as far as your spirit leaving the body, that is. I should have Greg come up here and talk about this. I know that that's possible, and I know that we have to be very careful, but I know that it is possible. I know that people do it in the Christian realm, okay? But I also know that the occult practice it, and other cults practice it as well. Obviously, it's abused, and they're taking advantage of something that God really has, called. And, you have people like Bobby Connors who does that. And so I know it's possible. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen him teaching, but sometimes he's like, where did Bobby go? He's like, woo, come back down here, Bobby. That kind of a thing. So I know that's possible. I'm not sure if we should work at trying to make ourselves do it. That's kind of my thing, okay? And I just like to spend time with God. And if God wants to take me on an adventure, then I'm all for that. It's like talking with the dead, okay, necromancing. If I conjure it up, that's necromancing, okay? If God decides to have somebody that's been in my life, that's in heaven now, to show up, that's fine with me, okay? I'm okay with that. But I am not going to conjure it up. And that's where I really have to draw the line. And that's where I think we really need to be careful. Because, we just need to be careful. Does that make sense? Okay. Someone else. Yes.
Hi. I'm from England, so I'd just be interested to hear what happened in England while you were there and what you felt the spiritual climate was like. And I would really be interested in finding out how to get that book.
These books are actually going to be in the bookstore. Paul Manwaring said he's got 16 of them that he's going to put in the bookstore. So, England has been fun. We've been there 3 times, and England has been fun every single time. And because there's so much history of revival in God in England, it's so easy to pull on that and to tap into it, and to feel that when you go. We were in Harrogate, or however you say it, Harrogate, and we were at a conference there with New Wine people. And when we were driving in, I had been sleeping, and I woke up, and when we drove, right before we got inside the city, I looked to the left of me, and there was a field, beautiful rolling hills there, and there was a rock formation and a tree, and I just happened to look, and I looked back, and I went, oh, there's a vortex here. And I don't know what's happened in that city or what's going on, but I just went, oh. And so when we were in a coffee shop a few days later, I said to the students that were with them, I said, when we drove into Harrogate, did any of you see that tree and that rock formation right there, and where the sheep were sitting on the rock? And one of the students goes, yes. I was like, what is that? I wanted to get out and just play. I said, that's because there was an open heaven there. And so when we left, I said, Judy, when we left Harrogate to leave, I said, will you just stop there? I just need to jump out for a minute and go touch the land and just bless the land and bring about the righteousness through that open gate and stuff that was there. So that was really fun. And usually things like that happen like that. For me, it's not like I plan them or I try to go after it. They just open up and happen. So we really enjoyed seeing what is going on. It was really fun working with the Anglican people. They're desperately hungry. It was so fun to see them blessed. And I'm telling you, we had a fire tunnel the last night in Arrogate. And one of our students was laughing like really having a party. She was in the line praying for people, and she was just having a really good time. And these older English gentlemen would walk past her, and they're very proper, and I love them. They're just great guys, and they would look at her and give her kind of a funny look, and then they would look away and they would just go, woo, and just land on the floor, and they'd have to be carried out. And I think there was more people carried out than walked through the line that night. It was amazing and so much fun. And we were all pretty much drunk by the end of the line. I mean, us that were praying for people. And the band, the neat thing about the worship was live during the ministry time, and the band flowed with us. It was really, really fun. It's really fun when a worship team will do that, when they know they know what songs to sing, during this time. And when it was over, they were still playing, and just about our whole group just broke out in dance, and we just began to dance all over the place and pray for. We were on the floor and just having just as much fun as those that were going through the line. So there's just like I said, it's happening everywhere. But it was really fun to see these people do that. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, I just want to say, Victor, when you said this 5 or 6 angels, Benny, you have 7. And I think I told you that at the beginning there. You have one that stands behind you, one on your left, and one on your right. You have 2 that are prostrated out in front of you, and then 2 that kneel in front of you.
Wow.
So, and when you enter a room, it's like, yeah, that's what everybody feels.
Very cool.
Is the 7 angels. But I also have a question.
Yes.
I just was soaking. I find it really hard, and I don't know what, maybe you can touch on this, is that I find it hard to enter God's presence without music.
Yes.
And I don't know what that means. Because some people just can sit there and, they just feel it come.
Yeah.
But for me, I feel like I have to listen to, and it has to be like piano. And it has to be like for 2 hours before I can enter in.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering.
That's okay, that's you. Other people can do it. I can't. I mean, I could, it would take me longer, but I just use music as a tool. And I like the sounds that I hear. And what's happening is your spirit is identifying with the sounds, okay? And so what you're doing is when that happens, your spirit connects with it, and then you can go do and say and all kinds of stuff, so it's just a tool, and some people don't need it. I know the contemplative people, some of the mystics, they didn't have any of that, so they just were kind of like, they had to learn to do it without. But I just like it for a good tool, and I don't think that's a problem. I think it's a good thing.
So it doesn't really, it just depends on your spirit.
Whatever works for you.
Okay, I was just wondering about it. Thank you.
The goal is to be in His presence, and how that works for you, then you make that work for you. Okay, we're going to do one more, and then I'm done.
Can you discuss some about ley lines? Been hearing a lot about that lately. Just want to hear your take on it and what's going on, all that fun stuff.
The place in England where the open heaven was, that was a ley line. Okay, it was manifested in that tree and that hill. All right. The reason why I say that is when Bobby Connors was here, he had an experience with. He had gone to Chico, which is an hour and a half away from here, and had seen a tree, an old tree with witches in it and stuff. And so Scott was driving him back to Redding, and they were talking about that. And Scott said to him, well, Benny travels and she does this kind of stuff too, and there are ley lines. And he goes, that's what it is. It's a ley line. So and you can call them communication lines. A lot of times ley lines will be on earthquake fault lines. When we went down south to pray over the fault line, Andreas fault line, that's what we were seeing, communication lines. It's just communication into the spirit realm, okay? There are also physical ley lines over the land. You can get online and find this out. That's really easy to find out. And but I think there's a lot of spiritual involved in it as well. And so what I like to do is I like to go make sure that those ley lines are clean, because they've been used for other means, other traveling things. And I could go in, it's too long. I mean, it's just, But what I do is I just like to go bless it and cleanse it. So from then on, the communication lines are clear. for the heavenly realm. There are some ley lines that are man-made. Most of them are God-made. And the ones that are man-made, you want to get out as fast as you can. There's a place up in Weed that we went to, and it was definitely a place where there was a communication line with the occult, and I couldn't wait to leave. In most places, that doesn't bother me. I can go into places and it doesn't bother me. But this one was, and I questioned that for a long time. Why was I so uncomfortable being there? And I listened to John Paul Jackson, which he talks about this kind of stuff. And he said that there are some that are man-made, and the man-made ones are from man, and you don't want to, you want to get out as fast as you can in those. And okay, that's why I was having that feeling at that place. So that's a real short answer for